Hello everyone, my name is Joshua. This is the 85th video of my video journal series. Today's date is Monday, the 4th of May, 2026. Today is actually Star Wars Day. May the 4th be with you, everyone. Obviously, I'm not like the biggest Star Wars nerd out there, but I have watched some of the movies. And I admit it's a very good franchise. Some tidbits here and there, but not enough to enter like a pub trivia um, quiz or anything of the sort. But yeah, happy Star Wars Day. I actually didn't realize it was Star Wars Day until like someone pointed it out to me in the afternoon. I was like, oh yeah, today is May the 4th. Yeah, and how's everyone been on May the 4th? Star Wars Day. Are you a Star Wars fan? I'd like to hear about it in the comments. Um, and obviously, I've watched the original trilogy. I think my favorite movie out of the entire series is most probably Emperor Strikes Back. Um, that one was like a masterpiece of a movie. And, obviously, I do like a bit of the prequels, mostly all the memes that are in the prequels. Um, but yeah, it's been a while since I watched Star Wars. I should have watched a Star Wars movie today. Oh well. Um, but if you one of those like Star Wars fans who goes to one of those movie marathons, and good on you. Like May the 4th should be something special. And I'm surprised I didn't hear about it in the media, at least here in Australia, because we're a day ahead of the Yanks. So maybe I'll hear about it in news tomorrow when I wake up. Like about May the 4th and Happy Star Wars Day. In fact, next year will mark the 50th anniversary of the first Star Wars movie, A New Hope. So yeah, I can't wait to, you know, see that next year. 50 years of the Star Wars franchise. I mean, it's a pretty big mark, half a century. Um, so yeah, like a lot of interesting things happening on, and I guess this video journal entry will just be about like Star Wars and I guess fandoms, because I don't know about Star Wars, so um, I'll just have a little bit of a discussion about fandoms. But yeah, I guess Star Wars it's a nice series. Obviously, I've known Star Wars for quite a while, ever since I was young, but I was never like really into it like all my friends, because I had other interests. But I did watch some of the movies, the TV shows. I played some of the games, and Lego Star Wars will always be the best. um, but yeah, it's a very, I guess, like fun series to get into because you got like this massive world building and all these like just lore behind it. I just like Star Wars lore and history. um, I just find it really fascinating. And everyone loves to clown on Jar Jar Binks, but I don't think he's like the worst movie character by a long shot. I think it's like hating on Comic Sans, or Papyrus, like just hating on those fonts. Everyone hates um, any text written in Comic Sans. People hate Jar Jar Binks for appearing in any Star Wars movie, but I don't think it was that bad. Um, you know, there's certainly been worse. So yeah, I guess Star Wars. It's a very big thing for a lot of people. A little bit of myself included. I remember my dad told me a story when he was a kid in the 70s and early 80s. He used to go to like toy stores and he used to see like boxes and boxes of his original Star Wars figurines, brand new in the box. Mind you, this was when they first came out. They would have been first edition, and those alone would fetch tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. Those boxes of like 20 figurines will be literally priceless to a collector, but on the market they'll most probably fetch like millions. And yeah, as a kid he couldn't afford to buy Star Wars figurines. He didn't have the money for it, so yeah, like he used to even he even told me how he used to even see the rare ones, like what was that rare Star Wars figurine that no one bought? Like was it like Boba Fett or was it like the one with like the hoodie? I forgot what it was called. Um, the one with the hoodie and like two eyes, but you can't really make out the eyes. They're like mini like light circles or whatever. I forgot what it's called. Correct me, Star Wars fans. But even the rare ones that no kids bought back in the day, like he saw boxes of them, which will go for a lot of money nowadays. I don't know how much, but it will be a lot, a lot. Was it like it wasn't Ewok? No, it was. I forgot what it was called. But anyway, yeah. So obviously that's like my connection. I'm pretty sure my dad also watched Star Wars on TV as a kid. He didn't watch it in theaters, but he used to tell me his connection with Star Wars. Um, so yeah, um, I guess I like the Star Wars fandom is pretty big and diverse. Same goes with a lot of fandoms, but I think Star Wars is the one I know about the most. It's got a very dedicated fan base. Um, and obviously, I kind of like the whole geek and fandom culture. Obviously, it can be a little bit toxic, but I think it's a great way for people to meet up and express some of their shared interests and passion and love for a specific media or franchise, such as Star Wars, or it could be Hasbro Hotel, it could be um, Amazing Digital Circus, it could be Minecraft, it could be just about anything. And I know the ones I had listed may seem like overly specific, but those are the ones that come into my head at least. Um, Sports, like for a specific sports team, um, could be, um, anime like Jujutsu Kaisen or Dragon Ball, Sailor Moon or Pokemon or Urusei Yatsura. It could be pretty much anything. When it comes to like fandoms and groups and all that, that sort of like I guess geek culture, and I kind of like it. Um, Personally, I'm very big into trains. Um, I'm not part of like any transport community groups or anything like that, but I like to watch YouTubers um, who make video about trains because it's something that I understand to like I guess like a certain degree where I understand most of the terminology and concepts they're explaining. Where meanwhile the average person would be like, "What is an up and down line?" Um, so yeah, I guess I do have some knowledge when it comes to trains and public transport in general. Um, and I kind of like just talking to people about public transport, about my hobbies and my interests. So I guess being part of a fandom, like, or just a group that really likes something, including Star Wars, it's a great way to, I guess, socialize. And you can always go to like conventions. Whenever I went to like Comic Con here in Australia, there was always like a dedicated Star Wars section. And I remember going to Comic Con 2019, and that was massive. It was my first ever convention. It was huge, it was grandiose. I loved it. And I remember they had like a mini Star Wars display for the, what was it, the Rise of Skywalker movie. Yeah, they're doing a bunch of promotions about that. And I remember going to Oz Comic Con 2023. That was the last Comic Con I've been to. And that one was like a little bit like a step down. I know it was like a few years off, like a year after all the COVID restrictions were lifted. So obviously attendance was like maybe a little bit lower than 2019, but it felt really packed. And, I felt like it just lacked that, like, I guess, initial charm of the original 2019 Comic Con. Um, at least here in Sydney, the 2019 Sydney Comic Con was fantastic. 2023 was okay. Um, I went with a bunch of my mates, and yeah, I remember just like it being extremely, extremely crowded, even though I don't think the attendance was as high as 2019. I might be wrong though. But yeah, not to say there wasn't like anything to do. Obviously, there was a lot of things to do, but um, you know, maybe it's just a little bit of my bias. But I remember going to Smash last year, which is like an anime exhibition in here in Sydney. I went to Smash 2025. That was Very, very fun. My first anime expo that I've been to, and it was crowded, but you can actually like move around. I remember Oz Comic Con 2019 here in Sydney. It was crowded, but you could still move around because I went with my mom and my brother, and we had like a good time. And my mom's very like nitpicky about crowds and all that, but like we were able to move around freely. Um, Oz Comic Con 2023, yeah, it wasn't like that, but yeah, Smash 2025. No, that was good. It was a good convention, and obviously you want to go to a convention where there's a lot of people, but not where it's like shoulder to shoulder. I feel like um, you want some wiggle room in there, and yeah, there's a lot of other conventions going on, and I feel like you just got to look at like who's coming to those conventions, and um, you know, I heard of this convention called Supernova, which is kind of like Comic Con. It's like I guess the alternative. Um, I think it's like an exclusively an Australian thing. I might be wrong about that. But Supernova 2025. I looked at their guest list. They got a bunch of like noteworthy actors. They got Christopher Lloyd, they got Simon Pegg, they got Veronica Taylor, they got, who else? I looked at the guest list not too long ago. They got the guy who plays Scooby Doo in one of the live action movies. Um, they got a bunch um, of these, I guess, celebrities and people who are actually be interested. Oh yeah, Adam Savage. He's coming to Supernova Sydney 2026. So yeah, I might go to Supernova because it would seem very very much like my alley. And Ernie Hudson from Ghostbusters. Yeah, they got a bunch of people coming to Supernova this year. So yeah, I guess obviously I don't want to go to a convention where I don't know like any of the main headline acts or any of the celebrities, but you know, I guess this year Supernova it would definitely be on my list, just because I actually know a lot of the celebrities going, and I'm like, hey, I might be interested in hanging out with other people, maybe getting an autograph, getting to I guess socialize with other people, and I guess Supernova's like kind of broad. It's like comic books, manga, um, just anything geek related. Um, and I guess same thing goes with Comic Con. And who knows? Maybe I'll go to Comic Con this year if the Sydney one hasn't um, hasn't occurred already. But yeah, that's why I like conventions. And I also wanted to talk about, I guess, like with COVID, because it got me thinking about, ever since COVID, with like stuff like conventions to even public transport, attendance has always been like below um, like 2019 levels. For example, with like some certain conventions, I know it's like they're still maybe 80 or 70% of what they were in like 2019. Same with public transport. I think public transport is like the biggest thing where um, in 2019, like public transport use in Australia was like at this high, and then now here in 2026, it's like down here. It's like we're at the same level as it was in maybe like a decade ago, even though our population has grown drastically. And I think some of that has to be due to like people working from home, people catching less public transport. Um, yeah, that's just something that popped into my mind when I talk about conventions because I guess like we haven't fully recovered from COVID yet, which is pretty surprising. It's been like 4 years since all the restrictions have been eased. 4 years since we've opened up our borders here in Australia, but yet everything still seems like we're lagging behind a bit, at least in terms of like um, stuff related to transport and mass gatherings where there's a lot of people. I think everyone's just trying to avoid mass gatherings now because they want to like not catch like a flu or cold or a disease or something like that. And I can understand it, but at the same time, obviously, COVID-19 had a very big impact on, I guess, um, public transport, on conventions and all that. So I guess it you know, sort of hit um, fandoms like that because people weren't able to go out and socialize. And it'd be really weird telling I guess my grandchildren if I ever get married and my children have children, which will be my grandchildren. It'll be weird telling them about COVID-19. Um, it was a very interesting time, COVID-19. Um, and at least here in Australia, it was like really weird because I know I'm going a little bit off topic, but just I feel like I have to make a separate video about COVID-19, so I don't want to give away too much here because I might make a separate video about it. But yeah, it was very different amongst different states in Australia. Um, WA's response was a lot different than New South Wales. So anyway, I'll go into that I guess in a future video about my thoughts on the whole COVID-19 thing. But um, trust me, there will be no conspiracy theories or anything like that, like the whole 5G coronavirus conspiracy. Can you imagine people in 20 years' time looking back on that 5G stuff that, like, oh yeah, 5G emits coronavirus? People will be like, damn, how stupid were we to think that back then? But then you realize, oh yeah, people have been thinking about stupid stuff all over history. So you know, I fear for my grandchildren who have to learn about the year 2020 when they take like their history exam. I'll be telling them stories about what I saw on the news about the whole 5G situation, about people's response to the coronavirus. And obviously, yeah, that'll be a story for another day. But I quite like fandoms. I quite like mass gatherings where there's a lot of geeks and cosplayers involved, especially when it comes to Star Wars. Even though I'm not be the biggest fan out there of the Star Wars franchise, I do appreciate it, and I'd like seeing people express their passion and love for a series such as Star Wars. However, I guess one way you could see that is through conventions, and obviously, I guess conventions are still somewhat recovering from COVID. Um, depends which one you're going to, but you can just look at the attendance. Um, but yeah, I guess um, that's something I'll very much like to see. I will very much like to go to maybe like a dedicated Star Wars convention if they have them in here in Australia, just like only Star Wars. I want to see how many references I get. And I guess um, Star Wars is a very nice franchise, and I guess um, I'm very much interested in the whole, I guess, culture of Star Wars and really the lore behind it. I like just reading Star Wars lore, instead of doing actual like history studies. I'm just like analyzing Star Wars lore. That's really real history is that. For the HSC, they should do like Star Wars as an option, instead of Russia or Germany or Japan or the United States. Just have Star Wars. Analyze Emperor Palpatine's rise to power. That would be a very good essay question for the HSC. Can you imagine for the HSC just get like a Star Wars question, and you gotta watch like all the movies in chronological order and read all the books and play all the games. Honestly, and another thing is like with the HSC, if you do English for your HSC or high school finals, they're always trying to do a sophisticated text. They argue that the only form of sophistication is doing William Shakespeare. At least at my school, that's what they saw it as. So we never got to do like a normal movie like Batman, The Dark Knight, or should I say just The Dark Knight? Because it doesn't have the Batman thing at the beginning. Yeah, why can't we do a more modern movie like The Dark Knight, Wolf of Wall Street? Why can't we do those? Or even like Scarface with Al Pacino. That'd be a very good film to analyze in English. But no, we have to do all this Shakespearean stuff, all this Romeo and Juliet, Othello, Macbeth, um, because it's quote unquote sophisticated, Richard III, A Midsummer Night's Dream, and all that. Yeah, so I guess, for the English syllabus, they should really, I guess, put in more modern movies that us youngsters will be into. I guess put video games is also, video games are a form of art, of expression. If you can do books and movies, why not video games? Just analyzing video game cutscenes or dialogue. I bet you in 20 years' time, the HSC will implement video games as a part of the stimulus. They will, you know, analyzing video games and contextual themes within certain video games, like maybe like Final Fantasy VII. Maybe I'll make a separate video on that. See, I've got a bunch of video ideas. So, yeah, I like to see that sort of thing happen. But anyway, just to recap, and I guess to end this video off, obviously, um, May the 4th be with you. I'm gonna do that mini Star Trek symbol, long live imposter, or something like that. I don't know what the exact quote is. My mind's a little bit blurry, and hopefully I'm not doing like a gang symbol or anything like that. But it's what Lemur, what the Star Trek people do in Star Trek. Even though I'm making a video about Star Wars. So yeah, happy Star Wars Day. Is there a Star Trek Day? I don't know. And hopefully, you get to enjoy all your Star Wars fans. May the 4th. And I guess to leave you with an inspirational quote today, one of my wise quotes is never stop pursuing the things that you love in life. Just like your love in Star Wars or a love in a specific thing or passion or hobby, never stop chasing it. Ultimately, it's your, I guess, love for certain things that keeps your motivation going in life. And I guess there's no point in, reading a book or watching a movie if you're not interested in it, but focus on the stuff that you like. Focus on the stuff you're interested in. Because that can get you a lot of ways in life. Even if it's just a franchise like Star Wars, your interest will greatly drive your socialization skills and overall happiness. There's plenty of Star Wars fans out there. You can chat to them about, was Jar Jar Binks really involved in elevating Palpatine's rise to power? Was he the secret anti-villain? Oh, sorry, the secret anti-hero the entire time? Who knows? But, well, antagonist, sorry. He wasn't really a hero. He was more like part of the main group. But was he a villain the entire time? Anyway, that's all I guess I have to say. Yeah, just pursue your hobbies, pursue your dreams, and have a great one. Bye. See ya. Take care. See you all tomorrow.